I'm here with Drake Moore on the industrial music project 40 Octaves Below, as well as the collaborative project Mesmer's Ghost. How are you, Drake?
I'm well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm all right. I've had a very busy week. So the first, I would like to start by asking, well, first, how are you doing? And secondly, I would like to ask you this very, very important question that I think the listeners of both my program as well as your musical output would like to know. What is your favorite color and why isn't it purple?
Purple is quite nice. I tend to be drawn to black. Many will argue that black is not a color, but it is certainly the most appealing in the visual spectrum, categorizing carnation.
Yeah, what makes you think that?
I tend to surround myself by it. It brings me comfort.
Mhm.
One thing that I've come to realize is that light cannot exist without dark.
Mhm.
So to deny the darkness in ourselves is to deprive ourselves of the light as well. So darkness is something that I've learned to embrace through my lifetime, and it has allowed me to embrace that lighter side of myself.
Gotcha. I some comment to add to that. Have you seen season one of the HBO TV show True Detective?
I have not.
Basically it's an 8 hour movie and it stars Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson who plays these two detectives who are investigating occult related crime in Louisiana. And at the end of the episode, the show, sorry, um, both of them they looked up on the night sky and I think um, Woody Harrison's character says that it seems that the dark is winning, and then McConaughey says that no, no, because in the beginning there was only darkness. If you ask me, the light is gaining a lot of you know steam or power or space. Of course I'm paraphrasing it here. So I would like to ask, how did you and James come to meet, and how is BC?
James is a very good friend.
Well,
I have few really, really close, good male friends in my life, and I'm a bit of an introvert and a loner by nature, and I grew up in Peterborough, Ontario. It was where I spent majority of my younger years growing up and having experiences getting educated. And returned to Peterborough about 3 years ago and connected with James. So it's been an amazing musical journey with James. And I'm quite a fan of uh, his likeness and the music that we've created together has been quite a journey. And I look forward to creating much more with James.
I can see that. Yep, he's an awesome guy too, and he's been gracious enough to well have a convo with me on the show as well as introducing me to you and your musical project, which I find quite intriguing. So you sent me the a song of your latest record, and is what I find to be a departure from not quite a departure, but more like a variation, another variation of your previous work. Digital Fracture, that's the album title, and I wonder if the band Deftones play into your sphere of influence because I find that it's a lot like hearing their two. I think their two best records are 2000s is White Pony and 2012 is Koino Yokan. And what I'm reminded of their more subtle approach to their own sound in the 2012 release, in which basically correlating back to your own record. You have expressed it to me before that you wanted the new one to be a bit more, how should I say, accessible. If that is that, am I correct on that?
It's me. The music process, um, I feel uncomfortable taking credit for. I feel that it's more of a channeling. It's been an iterative process of repetition and refining since about 1996. I started out playing an industrial metal band called Brothel in '99, and that was sort of a short-lived experience. And I came to a point around 2006 where I felt that I wanted to be very careful about what I had to say, and I felt that I didn't have much to say. Not until a few years ago when I came up with the idea of producing Digital Fracture. And it was at that point that I felt that there were some things that I would like to say, and I was ready to say them. So that was a bit of an experiment, and I was really coming out of the world of software and more into physical hardware and instruments. And I started out with a drum machine, Electron Analog Rhythm Mark II, and everything was done within that one device, which in a lot of respects was very limiting. But at the same time, it forced me into an environment that I was able to express more clearly within those limitations. Of course, in the software world, you have so much, a wealth of plugins, you can literally get lost in the sea of, you know, trying to find that perfect sound, and subsequently never finishing anything you've started. I have hundreds and hundreds of songs that, started out as something but were never finished. And then moving into the hardware realm, I found that I was now finishing songs. It was quite an incredible thing to be limited, but at the same time set free. So with the new album, I've added more hardware, and now in terms of sound power, I have a lot more to work with. So it's going to be a little different.
Yeah, I can feel the difference there. And you mentioned before about like how music can be kind of a language to express the, what do you call it, the innermost and the kind of the messy stuff that is our psyche and our emotional life, which to be frankly honest, despite the wide range of language, it is insufficient. And it reminds me of one of my favorite songs, "Runaway" by Kanye West. I wonder if you've listened to it. So it's from his 2010 album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and it started out in the first. It's a 9 minute song, so the first 6 minutes is your typical rap verses and chorus and all that. And there's a lore that says that he came up with his entire verse in after listening to the beat in 4.5 minutes. But at the end of the 6 minute mark, with a mix of effects, including distortion and autotune and vocoder and whatnot, he turns his own voice into kind of a guitar solo, and he just hums the melody of the Runaway song. And even though he's not technically saying anything, I find that it is one of the most moving passages of modern music. And it's and I find that it's a stroke of Kanye West's beautiful, dark, twisted genius.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. Um, so, what would be the things that you want to express in your music?
If anyone who has listened to Digital Fracture and this point it's very sort of small, niche market base. But lyrically, I have extracted I references from music. It's all about we, it's a collective. I feel that I really wanted to eliminate any kind of ego from the music. And like I said before, it's very much like a channeling where I'm sitting down and the music is just coming out. So there's no real preconceived notion of what something is going to turn into. It's very much just it's an enjoyable experience that is done purely for the enjoyment. And in terms of lyric, um, I don't want to push ideas on people. You listen to it, you find your own meaning. So a lot of the lyrical content, could be perceived a certain way by one individual and, completely different by another. But I think certainly the theme that I feel presently that kind of I think comes through is a call for waking up, a call for thinking for oneself, um, unplugging from the digital media streams. These are things I think that are very important for us as human beings if we're going to move forward with minds of our own.
Of course, of course. Um, so you mentioned that you perceive yourself as a medium for the music, and it's an intrigue. It's for me, it's a very intriguing notion, and I like to bring up Kanye West again because he made a song in 2014 called "Only One," which is a very moving ballad dedicated to his mom. And in interviews, he said that he didn't really even remember the recording process because he felt like that was just his mom talking through him. And Kanye's mother, Donda, she passed away in 2007, and it's a really moving piece of music. And Paul McCartney was featured in it, but he appeared as a backup vocals. And I've always been intrigued by that notion, and even though I'm sort of like disappointed by the fact that there are a lot of like charlatans out there who pretend that they can speak to the dead by having the dead answer their soul and whatnot. I feel like if there is a genuinely real process in which you feel like consciousness is temporarily out the window and you feel a different spiritual force entering your own body, and at times incredibly beautiful things can be achieved, but in other times incredibly malicious things can be achieved, like the legend of the Wendigo and all of that.
Yeah, in terms of channeling, it's I feel a universal energy that I'm tapping into. And during the creative process, it's more about letting go and being in the moment and not having any preconceived notions of what it is I'm setting out to create. So it's kind of, as you could say, I would consider it an intuitive form of music creation. Um, the better I get to know my tools, the more I can just move about in the environment and let things happen. So I may hear something and I just do it, and it's in the moment and it's not, I'm not setting out to sound like anyone in particular. But of course, music is rather the sum of all of the great music that I've got to enjoy in this incarnation. All of that, all the experience, all the resonant frequencies I bring back in, and cannot help but be driven and influenced by that in the process.
And yeah, and I'd like to know about your sphere of influence that plays into your artistic and creative process. And I don't. It can it includes musicians, yes, but it can also include like artists in various other mediums such as cinema and literature and the visual art. So and like I think I've always thought that even when of course you strive to be expressive and you strive to have your own voice being expressed, because there are so much content out there, you cannot help but try absorbing it in some way or another. And again, the point about being a medium, all that you are a vehicle for the absorption of all the things that you perceive, and you mix it in with your own perspective on it, and then out comes the product of your creativity.
And I think it's true for all of us. All of us are kind of, you know, driven and influenced by the things that we consume. And I think it's a very important point with regard to media. Whenever information enters into our eyeballs, it becomes a part of our experience. And without knowing it, if we're plugging into media streams that are broadcasting ideas to control our minds, consciously or unconsciously, those experiences are becoming a part of us, and they become a basis for the decisions that we make day to day and how we conduct ourselves. So, as a young person, I was very enamored with movies and popular media, and in the last 10 to 13 years, I really unplugged from that. I made a conscious effort to just experience reality as it occurs around me. Now, of course, in the musical realm these days, one has to spend a little bit of time on social media, putting themselves out there, but I really try to limit that as much as possible. Um, it's quite disconcerting what's happening in the world today, particularly through the social media platforms and media streams. In terms of influence, very, very diverse range of things that influenced me in my lifetime. I was a small boy. It was first Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song. There's old 8 millimeter footage of me rocking out in the playpen. You know, the Immigrant Song. Um, then came along Boy George, and I just thought that he was so amazing, just doing his own thing, and held with everybody else. That was really cool. And soon after, I discovered the hair metal of the '80s. Metallica came along. So, in terms of literature, I'm really drawn to science fiction literature, which I found of all the genres of literature uh, is actually explores more spiritual themes than a lot of other types of literature. I've really been getting into the old classics like works by P.K. Dick, Ray Heinlein, um, Asimov, H.G. Wells are some of my favorites right now. Of course, Margaret Atwood, she's been a huge influence. In the art realm, definitely Salvador Dali, Alex Gray. Yeah, lots of influences across different mediums.
Yeah, it's just that's awesome because I wonder how would you measure creativity? Like, is there like a parameter in which you can judge people's creativity, or you know,
For myself personally, it either grabs me or it doesn't. If I look at something or I'm listening to something and my body's responding in a certain way, like I'm getting tingles or I'm just like, oh my god. This is so amazing. Like, not even really thinking about it. I'm just, it's that reaction from me in my body that I feel.
I think for me, of course, the antithesis of creativity is, commercialized product and all that. And there's always that tension between the financial slash industrial side of the music world, at least, and the creative side of it, because one seeks to control the other. That's definitely that, and the other does not want your control. It's kind of a really really bad parent-child relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's certainly true at some point in time. I don't know. Music today, being created by robots and having a formula in mind in terms of specifically pop music and what is considered mainstream marketable. There is so much amazing creative talent out there that does not get seen because it doesn't fit a mold. It's not perceived as marketable. Uh, the individuals who are, you know, creating this great art are not considered attractive enough to market. There's all kinds of ugly things that come into play. But at the same time, we live in this time where we can seek them out for ourselves. As creators, we can create web pages for next to nothing. We can promote on social media streams. Um, it may be true that we can't reach the audience that we'd like to, but at the same time, we are able to create and share.
And I wish to reflect on what you've said about social media and whatnot, because I don't think the problem is the product of social media itself. Even though I've noticed very recently that the apps and the softwares that are quote unquote free on the Apple App Store are the ones that are trying to gain your attention the most. If you paid for a certain software, they wouldn't have those like mechanisms in place that depends on your attention. It just sucks away your attention the same way as that the Dementors in the third Harry Potter book. And I think if we know how to use social media better, if we are conscious of both its upsides and downsides, I think, and also putting guys like Zuck and Jack into into accountability. I think we can have a solution to this problem. It's the same way as cars, really. I mean, they get us from place A to place B, but then they can also run over people.
Yeah, I think it's a common view in individual human that somehow being aware they can be immune to programming and implanting of information. And I simply don't think that's true. You listen to, you go back to some of the ideas of Timothy Leary. He has a really, really enlightening video entitled How to Operate Your Brain. Just quite a psychedelic experience, but it's quite an eye opener at the same time. I don't think anyone is immune to influence, particularly when that information is entering in through the eyeballs. The human body, I don't think it is readily able to discern between what is real and what is a video image playing on the screen. There are subliminal programs that become a part of you. And I know I'm certainly not immune to that influence. And in terms of social media, I think one of the most concerning things happening today is the censorship.
Oh yes.
The bias censorship that is happening to control how people think.
Hmm.
And We just had a day of remembrance a few days ago. Remembering people that fought and gave their lives for our fundamental freedoms. In full remembrance of that, reflecting on current events, you can see that we're surrendering those things that those people died for, one by one, because of fear.
That's correct.
Largely implanted through these media streams. Very, very concerning.
I don't think anyone of us should be what you call it arrogant enough to assume that if we can free ourselves from thought control by just be an individual, because so there's this really small book by Sam Harris known as called Free Will, and it's a really short text. It's only like 10,000 words long, and it debunks the entire notion of what we think of as free will. But then he says that because we are governed by forces that are entirely out of our consciousness, it's imperative. I think we can be more aware of that, as well as being more compassionate to those who have done bad things, even though we can how hold them in accountability because they did bad things, but they do it not really because they are consciously aware of their actions, not completely all the time, but perhaps there's a defect in their neurophysiology. And well, it can always be disputed, that book, but it's really worth checking out. I'm also reminded of have you read the comic book? I shouldn't say comic book, but graphic novel Watchmen.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So there are a lot of characters in there that I find. I mean, I don't really like any of them. I find all of them intriguing and complex, and one of them is Dr. Manhattan. And there's this scene, or if you call it, where he sends the girl Sally, or no, not Sally, the Sil Spectre #2 woman onto Mars, and he told her that yes, I can perceive space and time, I can perceive the past and the future and all that, but I cannot change it. So Spectre #2 asks him, well, so you're just a puppet then? And Dr. Manhattan responds with, yeah, but I'm the one that can see the strings. Yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
It's not something that I've pondered a lot over the years, this concept of free will, whether we actually have any. And, the human within wants to believe that I'm capable of discerning and, making my own decisions. I think, we are the sum of all of our experiences. Everything that happened to us in our lives has an influence on every decision that we make. I think every decision, and the beautiful thing about Dr. Manhattan is he's just in so much acceptance of that, and I can be in a state of looking at it and feel angry, feel frustrated. It helps me understand my fellow human beings and have compassion for them today and what's happening. I can have compassion for all kinds of things, no matter how much they deviate from my own set of morals and conduct. I think ultimately, good and bad is kind of an illusion. We're just moving through time, and these things are just unfolding. I'm not entirely convinced that past, present, and future are not the same thing. That this whole reality is an illusion to some extent. So, where a lot of people are living in fear today, I'm striving very, very hard to just enjoy my time. I've been given tools that I can express myself creatively, and I remind myself on a daily basis that isn't this an incredible time to be alive?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you look back in history, or recorded history at least, and what a time this is.
Oh yes. That's definitely the case. And it's a very funny notion to me, and it's a rather understandable notion, yes, that if you what is it, if you desire a mechanism in which to take you out of reality, there's always things to there's always something to do it, because there all the controlled substances out there, yes, but you know uh, social media is a drug, and like you said, fear is a drug, and of course, it. Of course, the opioid crisis is incredibly devastating, but those two elements that I mentioned have way worse effects on human beings, and it's quite concerning to me because you mentioned that there's a thing called darkness, and Nietzsche, that guy has this quote about like how you gaze into the abyss gazes back to you. Um, I wonder, what do you do about that? Because I have a way in which I accept that there's such a thing as darkness, and I tend to what you call it, deal with it by humor, and if I can, screw in a light bulb. But I think it would be a good closer if I just hand it out to you, and a good question would be, how do you is there a different option to the drugs, those mechanisms that lead people into pretending that there is a darkness, or to numb themselves from it? Is there a way in which you can confront it, you can look it into the eye and say, I am not afraid of you, and in fact, I kind of like you sometimes?
That's an interesting question you're asking me. I have very strong feelings about what I perceive as the war on people, whoever, whomever is responsible to perceived undesirables and elimination thereof. Um, you know, Uncontrolled substances were a big part of my life for a long time, fueled by rage and self-destruction. Um, there was one particular that I kept returning to over and over and over again. And each time I was having an extremely, extremely bad trip. And each time I went there, I kind of knew I was going back again and again and again. And it was like just really going into the pits of hell, facing my worst demons, being swallowed up and disappearing. Just an absolute hopeless despair. And like I said, I kept going back to it. I kept going back to it. It was almost like insanity. And what happened one day, I had a realization that this was my fear. My fear was a manifestation of my thoughts, and I can control my thoughts. And in that moment, I said to myself, you have the power to create your own reality. There is nothing to fear here. All of this is hell, this demonic presence that wants to consume you is your own creation. I sent it away. It has never returned. And ultimately, it was my fear of death, that I've concluded years and years later. And it was amplified, absolutely amplified through the assistance of this substance. So I think on a daily basis, our fear, if it is something that is, it's a thought, it's a feeling, it's something that we can change. It's not easy. It's not as easy as that, you know. But I think as human beings, we can recognize what feeds our fears and unplug from those things. We can take control over the inputs that come into our bodies and feed our brains, feed our meanings, minimize those things, and instead turn to things that make us feel good. If there are demons from the past, which I have many demons from my past, I had to look at those, I had to confront them, I had to forgive them. I had to have compassion for them by looking at what made them the demons that they were, and then realizing that I did that demon myself. And I realized that that is not my way, that is not the way to be. And through that, I have changed. So I recognize the ability in others to change. So I think it all comes down to being impeccable with yourself, taking accountability, not only for your actions, but what you choose to consume, whether that be literal or visual or auditory. All of those inputs, I believe, influence us on a very, very deep level, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah. One thing I've been recently saying to myself when I'm, what do you call it, surrounded by demons is, well, there's plenty of hellfire to go around. Let's make a barbecue. And with that, with that bombshell, drink more, everyone, from 40 octaves below. Thank you for joining the show.
I shall. Pleasure being here.